Hey everyone, how are you? Great to connect here on a Friday. I've gotten a couple messages from folks recently asking about how to set up a podcast. And I figured, you know what? Let me go ahead and set this stream up and talk a little bit today. We're also trying to share and evangelize more best practices around video and how to use it within a B2B organization and so on. So if you do have any questions, comments, feedback, go ahead and add them to this feed. You're probably watching this on LinkedIn. You see that I do a lot of LinkedIn shenanigans all the time. So real quick, uh, basically for the folks out there who are kind of considering setting up a podcast for your B2B brand, it's not a shock, or shouldn't be, that podcasts are really hot right now. There are a lot of reasons why. I won't dive into those. But for you brands out there, leaders, founders, VC partners, et cetera, that are skeptical, I'm telling you, it is one of, if not the best way to build brand right now. And so not only is it a brand function, but it's also a ABM tactic, right? And I don't like to kind of lead with, oh, it's a tactical demand gen kind of thing, because it'll either like help build brand and thought leadership and all the stuff that we want to do in content marketing, et cetera, evangelism, et cetera. But it's also something that could be used as a touch point, right? And so again, like whether you're just using it for brand and thought leadership or as a touch point in an ABM campaign, it's highly effective. So a couple things. If you want to set up a podcast, and what the irony of this actual stream is, I'm a little lazy here on a Friday, is I don't have my podcast set up outside of my headphones, but there are a couple things that you want to think about. So if you have your pen and paper out there, pull it out and let's go for it. So number one, people are constantly asking about the actual like gear that you need. I'd argue that like the microphone, which you don't sort of see here because I don't have my setup, but the microphone on the computer, not awesome. You can get it done, but it's not awesome, right? You want a higher quality microphone. So there's a couple options out there. You can get like a Yeti mic. So Google that, Yeti, Yeti microphone. I really like this Elgato mic. I'll go ahead and add the link to the Elgato mic. Is what I have. Here's a nice one, and I'm going to go ahead and put it in my link here. See how I can do this here. Okay. All right, so I'm dropping in the link to the Elgato Wave 3. I'm biased. This is my mic, but there's tons of other ones. Like I said, I'll drop in the Yeti mic as well. So I'm sort of getting this here in real time. But audio quality, I would argue, is very, very, very important to a good podcast, especially if it's going to be audio only, right? All right, so here is a Yeti mic, so you can see that. So I'm posting this now. All right. So again, there's tons of options out there, but these are, so you should see these on the comments. These are some good mics. Okay, and they're pretty affordable. Now there's the Shure mics, that are more expensive and all that, but these are some really like easy ones. You can also get like the arms, right, to be able to attach the microphone to your computer desk, and then it comes out and you can kind of see it. It has that cool sort of look, talk show look kind of thing. So I'll put that in for the Elgato, but the one that I use. But again, there's tons of options. Okay, so mic, get a high quality mic, go for it. Get some headphones, right? So I use this Audio Technica. Okay, headphones, but there's quite a few nice headphones out there. This is the model that I use, so I'm putting this in the chat. Okay, all right, awesome. So you can see that those are the headphones, but get yourself a nice set of headphones. Next is going to be some lighting. Now you can really go all out and get like some very expensive lighting, or you can just get some pretty inexpensive ones, right? Like you can get one for like 30-50 bucks or so, like the ring light. Put it in front of you. It depends on your setup, but this is a pretty lightweight setup. So I'm going to put light, get a nice little ring light, because that's the other thing that's really, really important, is having some great light. So great audio, great light, and you're pretty solid there. Now, the camera on your laptop, most laptops, they're pretty good right now, right? So if you want, you can get like a DSLR camera. That's what I have. I have an old school one that shoots in 1080, so it's not quite 4K, but who cares, in my opinion. And I got that set up right in front of me, and I shoot video all the time, so I have the I detach it and kind of take it around with me. However, you can get, like, just Google like a 4K webcam. So you don't necessarily need like a whole DSLR camera or mirrorless camera, unless you're gonna, you want to invest in it. You're gonna do a video. So the the actual video component now is covered if you got that. And so like your podcast might not be video. I recommend it's video, right? Just because I love video and I like to add that video visual component. But if you're just going to do audio only, that's okay too, right? The thing about also doing video is that you kill two birds with one stone. Obviously, you get the audio, but you also can repurpose it for other content, for social clips, etc. Right? And you get this dynamic kind of content. Nothing new. I've been evangelizing this for last 10 years. I'm really happy that B2B has embraced it. Everyone has a podcast, and so it's really important. That you take it seriously, right? There's some of the most important brands out there have invested in this, and they've done a wonderful job, and they're we know them for a reason, right? You look at Drift and what those folks did. You look at Gong. I mean, the list goes on, and that's just in boring B2B, right? Like, you look at like the influencers and consumer brands and so on. I mean, the list goes on and on. Okay, so we got our setup here. I mean, if you want me to like recommend a couple like DSLR cameras, I'm happy to do that. But as I mentioned, audio and lighting, very, very important. That's the key component. So that's your home recording setup. So I should have said that, like, if that's what you want to do at home over the internet, uh, that's a really solid, like, inexpensive setup. You can use tools to record like StreamYard, which is what I'm doing right now to stream this. And you can see there's some branding elements that, this graphic I threw together in a couple minutes. It's okay, it could definitely be better, but they have some really great functionality to do this kind of stuff. So I'll drop in the StreamYard recording platform, and there's some other ones like Riverside and a ton of other ones um, that are out there. Okay, so I just posted that in there. So again, that's the virtual kind of at home setup. You are beholden to internet connections, and that can screw things up and so on, but it's scalable, relatively speaking, and easy to get going, right? Now you can also have a live action shoot in person podcast, which you see is very popular, and you see folks who are really taking podcasts seriously are investing in that, Joe Rogan style kind of stuff. I love that, right? It's a lot more complex, of course, but I do think that if you're going to invest in that, that should be a format. Now you can have both, right? You can have some episodes that are done digitally like this, or you can have episodes that are done live action in person. That works as well, and you can kind of mix and match. So if you're going to do the live action in person, the thing about these productions is they can vary. Like you can have a production setup that costs, God, millions of bucks, right? Or you can have a very inexpensive setup. So if you want to do, like, let's just talk a little bit of about like kind of like a lighter setup here. Um, if you want to do, let's say, two subjects and a, let's say, kind of lighter weight setup in terms of the actual location, here's a good set of data points for you, or here's a good setup. So the first one is get two DSLR cameras, actually three, I should say, if you can, three. And you might be able to like pull it off with your phone. You like get one of the shots with your phone. So you do like two subjects, they're looking at each other. You can get a tight shot on them, on subject one, I should say, and then another tight shot on subject two. So one camera on the host, one camera on the guest, and then a wide shot. You've seen those wide shots where both subjects are looking at each other, and that's the third camera, right? And again, I've done this with my phone too. It depends on how much space you have on your phone and all kinds of stuff. If you can support and how long the episode is, and et cetera. If you can do that, great. If it's 15, 20 minutes, it might work well and you don't run out of storage on your phone. Most phones now are phenomenal, right? Put it on a little stand and you're good to go. So three cameras, let's just say one of them is your phone. Cool. You want tripods, obviously, for those. You want lavalier mics. And the lightweight setup is that you drop in a lavalier mic. So lavalier mics are the little clip-on mics. You run that into camera A, and then you have camera B, the other microphone that's going from the guest, and now you got that set up, right? And then you can get some lighting, right? So depending on the lighting that's in the space, hopefully find a place that has great lighting. The best lighting, in my opinion, is the lighting that's coming from the natural light through a window or so. So try to find a space. If not, there's tons of options for like lighting. You can get some like really lightweight lights on Amazon, and now you're good to go. So that kind of live action setup, I know it sounds simple, but it is. You don't have to have a crazy amount of folks. Now, the actual shooting of that, like if you're going to do this by yourself, I've done this before where I set that stuff up. I have, let's say it's just me and we're doing that setup that I just mentioned to you, where it's the two people setup. Then like I might get someone that's around to sit in the chair, and so I can see what the framing looks like for two people. So that's an option. Or you bring in a videographer, and this setup that I just mentioned to you, a decent videographer should know how to do this, right? Like they should know. If they don't, I don't know. I've done it hundreds of times with one videographer. Now I understand that some people get nervous and there are a bunch of moving parts. And yes, you will mitigate issues and errors and stuff if you have extra help. But if you got your stuff together and you're like skilled at multitasking, you should be able to get that set up done properly. Um, with one videographer. So that's, obviously then you record and whatever, right? You record the episode. Now there's another setup which is just one subject. So it is a podcast episode, but you're just focused on the guest, right? And they're talking, and so that's another option. And so that's a little easier. I've done that with one camera, and then I am either just asking questions, and it's less conversational. The editing of that is a little different because it's your, as the host, off, your questions are not coming on into the video. So it's more them talking, and kind of like, yes, you can use that as a kind of like a podcast clip. I guess that one is less of a podcast. The other option is that you are mic'd, but there's only one camera, right? And it's on the subject. And so it could be conversational, but the visual one camera is on the subject, right? So again, it's just focused on them, but you can kind of hear the host in the background asking the questions and all that, right? So there's a lot of different ways to do this, right? It depends on your budget and your the configuration, but also post production, right? Because if I have three cameras, right, I have two audio feeds that I need to now post produce. That obviously, for the folks out there, post production is editing, right? It's gonna take more time. It's gonna be it's gonna be more complex. It'll theoretically be more expensive if you're outsourcing that, right? Versus if you have one camera, then it's easier because it's going to take less time, less variables to kind of manage. So that said, I hope that's helpful. I'll do another one. I guess I'll try to do this like as much as possible, and we'll tackle this idea around how to set up your B2B podcast again, and I'll have more concrete information. But it just sort of on the whim wanted to talk about it because I literally have gotten a bunch of pings about this week, and how do I again set up my podcast, and what equipment do I need, and post production, and all that good stuff. I'll leave you with this thought: whether you do the virtual kind of home setup over the internet, or you do the in-person live action shoot setup, the beauty is that you should pull out tons of content. Now, whether you use AI to edit that stuff, or you use a human editor, you should be repurposing that content to make tons of video, shorter form ones that are like 15 seconds to 60 seconds or so, like the vertical, like Instagram story videos that are now supported on LinkedIn, the horizontal standard videos, longer kind of mid form, for lack of better words, videos, which are like probably, 2.5 to 6 minutes or so. And then you have longer form video, right? Which could be 20, 30, 2 hour podcasts, right? And so right there, you can imagine in terms of videos, you can have a ton. If you're recording a 20 to 2 hour podcast, right? God, you should be able to get tons and tons and tons of content. Now, there is a thing around overshooting stuff, right? Depends on your content marketing strategy and all that. If it's a great guest, then you might want to have a ton of stuff. It's up to you and your strategy to determine what makes sense. However, repurposing content is critical, and that's just the video. And then you'll take versions for audio platforms out there, but then you also transcribe these things and create tons of written blog content, which is awesome. You can create static images around quotes and all those cute things that we put on social media these days, right? GIFs, et cetera, et cetera. So, it's not just one podcast. That thing should turn into a ton of repurposed content. So without further ado, Yeah, let me know if you have any questions. I'll go ahead and wrap up. But again, I'm obviously very very bullish on video, very bullish on podcasts. I've done tons of them over the years, and really really emphasize the value that they bring to all brands, but certainly B2B is starting to catch up with consumer. Well, have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, y'all. Again, if you have any questions, comments, feedback, go ahead and add them to this link to the comments section or DM me, and happy to talk shop. Later.